In our hyper-connected world, where every achievement is documented, shared, and celebrated publicly, the ancient Stoic practice of maintaining silence about our successes seems almost revolutionary. Yet this principle, deeply rooted in the philosophical traditions of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, offers profound wisdom that remains as relevant today as it was 2 millennia ago. The Stoics understood something that modern society often overlooks. True power lies not in the proclamation of our achievements, but in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing our worth without needing external validation. This is not about false modesty or hiding our light under bushel. Rather, it's about understanding the deeper dynamics of success, human nature, and the cultivation of genuine inner strength. When we examine the lives of the great Stoic philosophers, we see individuals who achieved remarkable things, yet spoke little of their accomplishments. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, wrote his meditations not for publication, but as private reflections. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's most influential teachers, focused on wisdom rather than personal glory. Seneca, despite his wealth and political influence, emphasized the importance of internal rather than external measures of success. Chapter 1. The Stoic Foundation of Silent Success. The philosophical foundation for staying silent about success rests on several key Stoic principles. First is the understanding that external validation is not within our control, and therefore should not be the source of our satisfaction or self-worth. When we announce our successes, we immediately make ourselves dependent on others' reactions, opinions, and acknowledgments. This dependence creates a vulnerability that the Stoics sought to eliminate. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what is up to us, our thoughts, choices, and responses to circumstances. The moment we seek applause for our achievements, we've shifted our focus to what is not up to us, other people's opinions and reactions. This shift fundamentally undermines our autonomy and inner peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. This wisdom applies directly to our relationship with success. When we resist the urge to broadcast our achievements, we avoid the inevitable complications that come with public recognition: jealousy, competition, expectation, and the constant need to maintain our image. The Stoic concept of preferred indifference also applies here. Success, recognition, and acclaim are preferred indifference, things that are naturally preferable but not essential for a good life. The wise person appreciates these things when they come but doesn't depend on them for happiness or fulfillment. By staying silent about our successes, we demonstrate our understanding that these external markers are not what defines us. Furthermore, the Stoics believed in the virtue of temperance, moderation in all things. This includes moderation in how we handle success. Just as we shouldn't be crushed by failure, we shouldn't be intoxicated by success. Silence about our achievements helps maintain the emotional equilibrium that the Stoics prized so highly. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Public Success. Understanding why staying silent about success is powerful requires examining the psychology of what happens when we publicize our achievements. Modern research supports many of the insights that the Stoics intuited centuries ago. When we announce our successes, we trigger several psychological mechanisms in both ourselves and others. In ourselves, we activate what psychologists call the substitution effect. The satisfaction we get from telling others about our achievement can actually substitute for the satisfaction of the achievement itself. This can reduce our motivation to continue working toward our goals, as we've already received some of the psychological reward through social recognition. The Stoics understood this principle intuitively. They recognized that the ego's desire for recognition could become a distraction from the more important work of character development and continued achievement. Seneca warned against the applause of the crowd, noting that it often leads to complacency and a false sense of accomplishment. In others, our announcements of success can trigger envy, resentment, or competitive feelings. The Stoics were keen observers of human nature and understood that people often struggle with others' good fortune. By keeping our successes private, we avoid becoming targets of these negative emotions and maintain better relationships with those around us. There's also the phenomenon of tall poppy syndrome, the tendency for people to want to cut down those who rise above the crowd. When we publicize our success, we make ourselves visible targets for criticism, gossip, and attempts to diminish our achievements. The Stoics preferred to avoid these complications entirely by maintaining discretion about their accomplishments. Additionally, public success creates expectations and pressure for continued performance. Once we've announced an achievement, people expect us to maintain or exceed that level of performance. This external pressure can interfere with our natural rhythm and decision-making process, potentially leading to poor choices driven by the need to maintain our public image rather than our authentic goals. Chapter 3. The Energy Conservation Principle. One of the most practical aspects of staying silent about success relates to energy conservation. The Stoics were remarkably practical philosophers who understood that our mental and emotional energy is finite and should be used wisely. When we publicize our successes, we expend energy in several ways. First, there's the energy required to craft the message, choose the right words, and present our achievement in the best light. Then there's the energy spent monitoring responses, engaging with congratulations, and managing the social dynamics that result from our announcement. More subtly, there's the ongoing energy drain of maintaining the image we've created. Once we've publicly claimed a certain level of success, we feel pressure to live up to that image consistently. This creates what psychologists call cognitive load, the mental effort required to maintain multiple concerns simultaneously. The Stoics believed in focusing our energy on what matters most, the development of wisdom, virtue, and character. Every unit of energy spent on managing our public image is energy not available for these more important pursuits. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to focus on the essential and ignore the superficial distractions that crowd our daily lives. There's also the consideration of what the Stoics called preferred indifference, external things that are naturally preferable but not essential for flourishing. Recognition and praise fall into this category. While it's natural to enjoy recognition, the wise person doesn't expend significant energy pursuing it or managing it once it arrives. By staying silent about our successes, we conserve our energy for the things that truly matter: continued learning, helping others, and working toward our next meaningful goal. This energy conservation isn't about being lazy or withdrawn. It's about being strategic with our most precious resource, our attention and mental effort. Chapter 4. The Power of Mystique. There's tremendous power in maintaining an element of mystery about our capabilities and achievements. The Stoics understood that people are naturally drawn to those who don't feel the need to prove themselves constantly. This creates what we might call quiet authority, influence that comes not from boasting but from demonstrated competence and character. When we consistently deliver results without fanfare, we build a reputation for reliability and competence that speaks louder than any self-promotion could. People begin to notice our consistent performance and start to seek us out, rather than us having to push our achievements onto others. This principle is beautifully illustrated in the story of Epictetus, who, despite being born into slavery and suffering physical disability, became one of the most respected teachers of his time. He didn't achieve this through self-promotion, but through the quiet demonstration of wisdom and character. Students came to him not because he advertised his accomplishments, but because his reputation for insight and integrity spread naturally. The mystique of silent success also protects us from competitors who might try to undermine us if they fully understood our capabilities or methods. In both ancient and modern contexts, keeping some cards close to our chest can be strategically advantageous. The Stoics weren't naive about human nature. They understood that discretion could be a form of prudence. Furthermore, when we don't announce our successes, people are often more impressed when they discover them naturally. There's something powerful about understated excellence. It suggests confidence and security that doesn't need external validation. This quiet confidence is magnetic and tends to attract opportunities and relationships that might not come to those who are more vocal about their achievements. Chapter 5. Building Genuine Self-Worth. Perhaps the most important aspect of staying silent about success is how it contributes to building genuine, unshakable self-worth. The Stoics believed that true confidence comes from within and shouldn't depend on external validation or recognition. When we consistently announce our achievements, we train ourselves to derive satisfaction from others' reactions rather than from the intrinsic value of our work. This creates a dependency that makes us vulnerable to others' opinions and moods. If people don't react as enthusiastically as we hoped, we feel deflated. If they do react positively, we get a temporary high that fades quickly, leaving us craving the next fix of recognition. By staying silent about our successes, we learn to find satisfaction in the work itself and in our own knowledge of what we've accomplished. This builds what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from internal satisfaction rather than external rewards. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation is more sustainable and leads to better long-term performance than extrinsic motivation. The Stoics were pioneers in understanding this principle. They emphasized the importance of being able to say, "I know what I've done, and that's enough." This doesn't mean we become hermits or reject all social connection, but rather that our fundamental sense of worth doesn't depend on others' acknowledgement of our achievements. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this principle throughout his reign as emperor. Despite having almost unlimited power and achievement, his private writings show a man focused on character development and philosophical understanding rather than on the glories of his position. He found his satisfaction in living according to his principles rather than in the acclaim that came with his role. This internal focus also makes us more resilient in the face of setbacks. When our self-worth isn't tied to public recognition, we're less likely to be devastated by failures or criticism. We maintain a more stable sense of self that can weather the inevitable ups and downs of life. Chapter 6. The Avoidance of Negative Consequences. Staying silent about success helps us avoid numerous negative consequences that the Stoics identified through careful observation of human behavior. These consequences range from the immediate social complications to longer-term impacts on our character and relationships. One immediate consequence of publicizing success is the creation of unrealistic expectations. When we announce an achievement, people naturally expect us to maintain or exceed that level of performance consistently. This can create pressure that interferes with our natural rhythm and decision-making process. The Stoics understood that external pressure often leads to poor decisions driven by the need to maintain appearances rather than by wisdom and prudence. There's also the risk of attracting the wrong kind of attention. Success announced publicly can draw people who are interested in us for what we can do for them rather than for who we are. The Stoics valued authentic relationships based on mutual respect and shared values, not relationships based on what someone could gain from associating with a successful person. Public success can also trigger what the ancients called the evil eye, the jealousy and resentment of others. While we might dismiss this as superstition, the underlying psychological reality is that publicizing our good fortune can indeed attract negative attention and energy from others. The Stoics preferred to avoid these complications by maintaining discretion about their achievements. Another significant risk is the temptation toward pride and arrogance. The Stoics identified pride as one of the most dangerous emotions because it distorts our perception and judgment. When we consistently announce our successes and receive praise, we can begin to believe our own publicity and lose the humility that's essential for continued learning and growth. The Stoics also warned against the fickleness of public opinion. Today's hero can become tomorrow's villain with little warning. By not making our sense of self dependent on public recognition, we protect ourselves from the inevitable swings of popular opinion. Chapter 7. The Cultivation of Humility. Humility is perhaps the most important virtue when it comes to handling success, and staying silent about our achievements is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate and maintain this quality. The Stoics understood that humility isn't about thinking less of ourselves, but about thinking of ourselves less often, focusing on contribution rather than recognition. True humility recognizes that our successes are rarely entirely our own doing. The Stoics believed in the interconnectedness of all things and understood that our achievements are built on the foundation of countless other people's contributions, favorable circumstances, and even simple good fortune. This recognition naturally leads to a more modest approach to success. Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself of his dependence on others and on circumstances beyond his control. He wrote, What brings no benefit to the hive can bring none to the bee. This perspective helps us see our individual successes as part of a larger whole, reducing the ego's tendency to claim all the credit. Staying silent about success also helps us maintain what the Stoics call beginner's mind, the openness to continued learning that's essential for growth. Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself of his dependence on others and on circumstances beyond his control. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive can bring none to the bee." This perspective helps us see our individual successes as part of a larger whole, reducing the ego's tendency to claim all the credit. Staying silent about success also helps us maintain what the Stoics called beginner's mind, the openness to continued learning that's essential for growth. When we announce our achievements, we risk becoming attached to our reputation as successful, which can make us defensive about admitting mistakes or ignorance. This defensiveness interferes with learning and growth. Humility also makes us more approachable and likable. People are naturally drawn to those who are accomplished, but don't feel the need to constantly remind others of their achievements. This creates better relationships and more opportunities for collaboration and mutual support. The practice of staying silent about success trains us to find satisfaction in the intrinsic value of our work rather than in external recognition. This shift in focus leads to better work and more authentic success, as we're motivated by the desire to create value rather than to gain applause. Chapter 8. Strategic Advantages in Professional Life. In professional settings, the practice of staying relatively silent about our successes can provide significant strategic advantages. The Stoics were practical philosophers who understood that wisdom should be applicable to daily life, including our work and career development. One key advantage is that quiet competence often stands out more than loud self-promotion. In environments where everyone is constantly highlighting their achievements, the person who simply delivers excellent results without fanfare often captures more attention and respect from decision-makers. This is because leaders are typically looking for people they can rely on, not people who are good at marketing themselves. The Stoics understood the power of reputation built through consistent action rather than words. When we let our work speak for itself, we build what modern business calls brand equity, a reputation for quality and reliability that opens doors and creates opportunities. This kind of reputation is much more valuable than temporary recognition because it's based on sustained performance rather than momentary achievement. Staying silent about success also helps us avoid the target phenomenon in competitive environments. When we publicize our achievements, we can inadvertently make ourselves targets for competitors who want to undermine us or prove themselves against us. By maintaining a lower profile while continuing to perform at a high level, we can often advance more smoothly and with less resistance. There's also the advantage of being underestimated, which the Stoics recognized as often beneficial. When people don't fully grasp our capabilities, we can sometimes accomplish more because they're not actively working against us or trying to match our efforts. This doesn't mean being deceptive, but simply not advertising our full potential until it's strategically advantageous to do so. Furthermore, in team environments, staying humble about our individual contributions helps build stronger collaborative relationships. The Stoics valued harmony and cooperation, understanding that group success often depends on individuals being willing to subordinate their egos to the common good. Chapter 9. The Deeper Philosophy of Achievement. The Stoic approach to success goes much deeper than simple tactics for managing recognition. It reflects a fundamental philosophy about what achievement means and why we pursue it in the first place. This deeper understanding is essential for making the practice of silent success sustainable and meaningful. The Stoics believed that the purpose of achievement should be the development of our character and our ability to contribute to the common good. From this perspective, success is not an end in itself, but a means to becoming a better person and making a positive impact on the world. When we see success this way, the need to publicize it diminishes because the real value lies in what we've become and what we've contributed, not in what others think about it. This philosophy also helps us maintain perspective about both success and failure. The Stoics taught that both are temporary conditions that shouldn't define us or determine our emotional state. By staying silent about our successes, we practice treating them as preferred indifference, things that are naturally welcome but not essential for our well-being or self-worth. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that his achievements as emperor were temporary, and that his character was what would truly matter in the long run. He wrote, "Remember that very little disturbs the balance of your life. What brings anxiety are the useless things we pursue." This perspective helps us focus on building something lasting rather than chasing momentary recognition. The deeper philosophy also recognizes that our greatest achievements might be invisible to others entirely. The Stoics valued internal victories, moments when we chose virtue over vice, wisdom over folly, or service over selfishness. These achievements are often more significant than external successes, but they can only be truly appreciated by ourselves. This understanding leads to what we might call success independence, the ability to pursue meaningful goals without needing others to validate or acknowledge our progress. This independence is tremendously liberating and allows us to take on challenges and pursue purposes that might not be popular or immediately recognized, but that align with our deepest values and aspirations. Chapter 10. Practical Implementation Strategies. Understanding the philosophy behind staying silent about success is one thing. Implementing it in our daily lives is another. The Stoics were always concerned with practical application. So let's explore specific strategies for putting these principles into practice. The first strategy is developing what we might call internal celebration rituals. Instead of announcing our successes to others, we can create private ways of acknowledging and appreciating our achievements. This might involve journaling about what we learned from experience, how it contributed to our character development, or how it positions us to help others. Marcus Aurelius's meditations can be seen as an example of this practice. Private reflection on experiences and lessons learned. Another practical approach is to redirect conversations away from our achievements when others bring them up. This doesn't mean being awkward or secretive, but rather shifting focus to what we learned, how others contributed, or what challenges remain. The Stoics practiced this kind of conversational humility regularly, always seeking to deflect attention from themselves to more important topics. We can also practice delayed disclosure, waiting to share achievements until enough time has passed that we're not seeking immediate validation. When we do eventually share, it's more likely to be in the context of helping others or contributing to a meaningful discussion rather than seeking praise. The practice of gratitude is essential here. The Stoics regularly reminded themselves of all the factors beyond their control that contributed to their success. By maintaining this perspective, we naturally become less inclined to take full credit for our achievements and more inclined to appreciate the complex web of circumstances, relationships, and opportunities that made them possible. Setting process goals rather than outcome goals can also help. When we focus on the quality of our effort and the consistency of our practices rather than on specific achievements, we become less attached to publicizing results and more focused on continuous improvement. Chapter 11. The social dimension of silent success. While the focus has been on individual benefits of staying silent about success, there are important social dimensions to consider. The Stoics were deeply concerned with our obligations to others and the health of our communities. So they would want us to consider how our approach to success affects those around us. One positive social effect of staying humble about our achievements is that it creates space for others to shine. When we're not constantly drawing attention to our own successes, we can better notice and celebrate others' accomplishments. This creates a more positive and supportive environment for everyone. The Stoics also understood that our behavior serves as an example to others. When we demonstrate that it's possible to achieve things without needing constant recognition, we model a healthier relationship with success that others can emulate. This can help create cultures of genuine achievement rather than cultures of self-promotion. There's also the consideration of how publicizing success affects those who are struggling. The Stoics were sensitive to the impact of their actions on others and would want us to consider whether constantly announcing our achievements might be discouraging to those who are facing challenges. This doesn't mean hiding all good news, but rather being thoughtful about when and how we share. In leadership roles, staying humble about our successes can actually increase our influence and effectiveness. People are more likely to follow and trust leaders who they perceive as focused on the mission rather than on personal glory. The Stoics understood that true authority comes from character and competence, not from self-promotion. The practice also contributes to healthier, competitive environments. When we don't feel compelled to announce every success, we're less likely to trigger unnecessary competition or create adversarial relationships with colleagues or peers. This can lead to more collaborative and productive working relationships. Chapter 12. Dealing with others' expectations. One of the challenges of implementing a philosophy of silent success is dealing with others who expect or pressure us to share our achievements. In our culture of social media and constant sharing, choosing to stay quiet about success can sometimes be misinterpreted or create social friction. The Stoics would approach this challenge with their characteristic focus on what is and isn't within our control. We cannot control others' expectations or reactions, but we can control how we respond to pressure to share more than we're comfortable sharing. One approach is to have ready responses for when people ask why we don't talk more about our achievements. We might explain that we prefer to focus on the work itself rather than the recognition, or that we find more satisfaction in the process than in the applause. These responses can be given kindly but firmly, maintaining our boundaries while not making others feel bad for their different approach. It's also important to distinguish between sharing information that's helpful to others and sharing for the purpose of gaining recognition. The Stoics valued contributing to others' learning and growth. So there are times when sharing our experiences and achievements serves a constructive purpose beyond self-promotion. In professional settings, we may need to find ways to ensure that our contributions are appropriately recognized for practical purposes like performance reviews or career advancement, while still maintaining our philosophical approach to success. This might involve finding trusted colleagues or mentors who can speak to our achievements, or documenting our work in ways that don't require self-promotion. The key is to remain flexible and practical while maintaining our core commitment to not deriving our sense of worth from external recognition. The Stoics were pragmatists who understood that we must navigate the world as it is while still holding to our principles. Chapter 13. The long-term benefits. The benefits of maintaining silence about our successes compound over time, creating advantages that may not be immediately apparent, but become increasingly powerful as they accumulate. One long-term benefit is the development of what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from internal satisfaction rather than external rewards. Over time, people who practice silent success become more self-directed and less dependent on others' approval for their motivation and satisfaction. This makes them more resilient and more capable of pursuing challenging or unpopular goals when they align with their values. There's also the gradual building of what the Stoics would call character. Each time we choose not to seek recognition for our achievements, we strengthen our ability to find satisfaction in virtue itself rather than in others' opinions of our virtue. This character development pays dividends in all areas of life, making us more trustworthy, more stable, and more capable of leadership. The practice also leads to better relationships over time. People who don't constantly need to be the center of attention or to have their achievements acknowledged tend to be better listeners, more supportive friends, and more effective collaborators. These relationship benefits often lead to opportunities and support that wouldn't be available to more self-promotional individuals. From a professional standpoint, the long-term benefits can be substantial. People who consistently deliver without fanfare often develop reputations for reliability and competence that open doors throughout their careers. They become known as people who can be trusted with important responsibilities because they're focused on results rather than recognition. There's also the benefit of avoiding the long-term costs of a lifestyle built around seeking recognition. People who are constantly promoting their achievements often find themselves on a treadmill of ever-increasing need for validation. The Stoic approach creates a more sustainable and peaceful way of living that doesn't depend on constantly outdoing previous successes. Chapter 14. Addressing common objections. Critics of the silent success philosophy often raise several objections that deserve thoughtful consideration. The Stoics believed in examining their ideas critically and addressing potential weaknesses in their reasoning. One common objection is that staying silent about success means missing opportunities for career advancement or business development. The concern is that in competitive environments, Those who don't promote themselves will be overlooked in favor of those who do. The Stoic response to this objection is nuanced. They would acknowledge that there are indeed situations where some level of self-advocacy is necessary for practical reasons. The Stoic response to this objection is nuanced. They would acknowledge that there are indeed situations where some level of self-advocacy is necessary for practical reasons. However, they would distinguish between sharing information that's necessary for others to make good decisions and seeking validation or recognition for its own sake. The key is to focus on being useful rather than impressive. Another objection is that staying silent about success means not inspiring others who might benefit from hearing about achievements and the path to them. This is a valid concern that the Stoics would take seriously, given their commitment to contributing to the common good. The response here is that there are ways to share valuable information and inspiration without making it about personal recognition. We can talk about principles, processes, and lessons learned without making ourselves the hero of the story. We can also share other success stories and highlight the achievements of those around us. Some argue that in our modern economy, personal branding and self-promotion are simply necessary survival skills. The Stoics would agree that we must be practical about the world we live in. But they would also point out that many of the most successful people throughout history have been those who let their work speak for itself rather than constantly talking about it. Finally, there's the objection that staying silent about success is just another form of pride, a subtle way of feeling superior to those who do seek recognition. The Stoics would acknowledge this risk and emphasize the importance of examining our motivations carefully. The goal is not to judge others, but to find a more sustainable and fulfilling approach to achievement for ourselves. Chapter 15. Integration with modern life. The challenge for modern practitioners is how to integrate these ancient principles with contemporary realities like social media, networking requirements, and cultural expectations around sharing and transparency. The Stoics were adaptable philosophers who understood that principles must be applied thoughtfully to different circumstances. In our context, this might mean finding ways to participate in necessary professional and social communications while maintaining our core commitment to not deriving our sense of worth from external recognition. For social media, this might involve using these platforms primarily to share valuable content, support others, or contribute to meaningful discussions rather than to highlight personal achievements. When we do share successes, we can frame them in terms of gratitude, lessons learned, or opportunities to help others rather than as requests for validation. In networking and professional development contexts, we can focus on building genuine relationships based on mutual interest and value rather than on impressing others with our accomplishments. The Stoics valued authentic connection over superficial networking, and this approach often leads to stronger and more beneficial professional relationships. The key is to remain mindful of our motivations and to regularly examine whether our actions are aligned with our values. The Stoics practiced regular self-examination, asking themselves whether their choices were contributing to their character development and their ability to serve others. Modern technology also offers new opportunities to practice these principles. We can use tools like private journaling apps to create our own internal celebration rituals, or we can find online communities focused on philosophy and character development rather than achievement showcasing. The integration process is ongoing and requires flexibility, wisdom, and regular reflection. The goal is not to reject all aspects of modern communication culture, but to engage with them in ways that support our deeper values and long-term well-being. Conclusion: the path forward. The hidden power of staying silent about success lies not in secrecy or false modesty, but in the cultivation of genuine inner strength and the pursuit of meaningful achievement for its own sake. The Stoic philosophers understood that true satisfaction comes from living according to our highest values, contributing to the common good, and developing our character rather than from the applause and recognition of others. This doesn't mean becoming hermits or rejecting all social connection. Rather, it means finding our primary satisfaction in the intrinsic value of our work and our growth as human beings, while still maintaining healthy relationships and contributing positively to our communities. The practice of silent success offers freedom from the exhausting cycle of constant self-promotion and validation seeking that characterizes much of modern life. It provides a more sustainable and fulfilling approach to achievement that focuses on substance over appearance, character over reputation, and contribution over recognition. As we move forward in implementing these principles, it's important to remember that this is a practice, not a perfection. The Stoics understood that wisdom is developed gradually through consistent application of philosophical principles to daily life. We will undoubtedly face situations where we're tempted to seek recognition or where we must balance our philosophical ideals with practical necessities. The key is to maintain our commitment to the underlying values while remaining flexible about their application. We seek to become people who are motivated by the intrinsic value of virtue and contribution rather than by external validation, while still engaging thoughtfully and helpfully with the world around us. The path of silent success is not always easy, but it leads to a more authentic, sustainable, and ultimately more satisfying way of living. It connects us with a tradition of wisdom that has guided thoughtful people for centuries, and it offers a powerful alternative to the often shallow and anxiety-provoking culture of constant self-promotion that surrounds us. In choosing this path, we join the ranks of those throughout history who have found their greatest satisfaction not in the applause of crowds, but in the quiet knowledge that they have lived well, contributed meaningfully, and grown in wisdom and character. This is the hidden power of staying silent about success, not the power to impress others, but the power to build something lasting within ourselves and to contribute authentically to the world around us. The Stoics would remind us that the best success is the kind that makes us better people and helps create a better world, whether or not anyone notices. In pursuing this kind of success and maintaining our silence about it, we discover that we need less external validation than we thought, and we find more internal satisfaction than we imagined possible. This is the true victory, not over others, but over our own need for recognition, and not for its own sake, but so that we can focus our energy on what truly matters: living well and serving others. The journey toward mastering the art of silent success is itself a success worthy of celebration. The kind of quiet, internal celebration that the Stoics would most approve of. It is a victory that makes us stronger, wiser, and more capable of the kind of lasting achievement that truly transforms both ourselves and the world around us.